to the next steps for therapists to take in their practice and in their personal lives. Today, we are interviewing the wonderful Rosalyn Rourke, who has some processes that she will share with us. She is a social worker by professional training, as well as a practitioner and studier of non-duality. And she also says that she's been doing shame research since before it became popular. And we're interested in hearing all of the beautiful things that Rosalyn Rourke would like to share with us today. Welcome, Rosalyn.
Welcome to you and welcome to this community. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, wonderful. Are there any other things that you would like to share with us that would be good describers or help people know you?
All right, so you and I chatted a minute ahead, but nobody is probably privy to my story. Everybody has a story, and our stories are what make us appear in the world the way we do. You know, our defenses, our reactions to our perceptions, to our stories, what we take away from our stories describes how we live right now, but there is so much possibility in shifting our narrative. And that's what I love. I don't like to stay stuck in what the narrative was. I like to see what the possibilities are.
Beautiful. That is a wonderful introduction to how you work with yourself and your clients. And so, would you share with us just a little bit of how you work with people now that you are in this iteration in your life?
All righty. So everything changed in 2018. I had been a psychotherapist in private practice for more than 30 years. And I had retired. And then my daughter unexpectedly died. And I was in what people call the stages of grief. And then one day, while in the midst of the most gut-wrenching pain, I was shaken from the outside. It was my experience. It wasn't like nerves or upset inside. I felt physically shaken, like somebody was shaking you awake. And what I noticed, first of all, I saw nobody was there shaking me. So that was odd. What was happening, I didn't know. But I pretty soon left that question, like what was happening, because I noticed that the suffering had disappeared. Where had it gone? I was filled with a feeling of okayness. Just, you know, like when a headache that you've had persistently for a day or a lot of hours, and then it's gone, there's almost jubilance in that okayness because you didn't ever expect to be without that headache when you're in the midst of it. Like it feels like it might stay. And that searing pain of grief felt like there were going to be iterations, but life was over for me, was the way I pictured it.
Mm.
And then there was this feeling of okayness. And right after that came the taboo. Could you admit this to anyone? How can a mother who loved her daughter feel okay?
Mm.
No, it can't be. And I went, it is happening. So I immediately started to feel what might be courage. Courage just to I've always been a truth seeker. And I didn't know what it would mean. I didn't know it would last, but I knew that it was real for that moment. And I knew that I would admit it to someone. And that was the first really big step in not going back, because I could see it in an instant. I could go back to hurting and I would have the world's support. I'd be a mother who lost her daughter. I'm in a tribe of grieving mothers, there are organizations. I'm held. I've experienced great love as a grieving mother. This was something else. Maybe I'm going to be alone. It
Mm,
didn't look attractive, but that feeling of okayness was beyond an okayness that I've ever felt. It wasn't going back to my old normal. It was, oh, I don't know how to describe it, but shame was gone, guilt was gone, memories and future planning were both gone. I was in presence. I was just okay. And being outside of good and bad was so huge, it's hard to find words. So
yes.
that actually has become my teacher because it stays with me. And in the world, when I get caught up in this is better than that, and that's good, and that's bad, I can step back to this okayness as my home.
Mhm.
And
Oh my
so that's
goodness.
what's that?
I just said, oh my goodness. It's
So
almost like
that
a
is,
stitch.
and that is what I hold for every person I work with. So yes, fast forward, I came back to work as a oneness coach, not as a psychotherapist. I gave up my license. I'm not doing that. I'm calling oneness the best way I can describe getting outside of good and bad, progress, falling backward. What we do, we are evaluating all the time. That's okay. It's part of the outer world. But we have an inner world, and we can have a home from somewhere else besides the good and bad, because that's too mercurial, will go up and down. That is its nature.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your personal story and the process of finding this level of okayness that helped you really, it sounds like, heal and be present. And I would love it if you could talk a little bit about that process, and is that something that you're teaching to others?
Yeah, so when I heard that your um, audience were going to be caregivers, and for psychotherapists, we need a high level of self-care because we're facing very difficult, gut-wrenching stories all the time. And so it isn't even coming back to our prior normal. I feel we can all find this okayness, for lack of a better word. And I like okayness because it's not part of anybody's mystical tradition. It's not part of religion. It's not part of anything particular. So it can be a new word for people and it can be reachable. Why can't we feel okay? So I like that word. Um, and so that's my vision for each person, that I didn't find something that's special, that's only for me. This is available for every person. And I kind of feel like it was taught to me because I was such a mess then. I really felt like my life was over. Like what was there to look forward to without my daughter in this world? So I feel like everybody has access to this. So what I'd like to talk about, because it's available to everyone and it includes the paradox. Most truth has a paradox, I have found. And there is a little something that we all hold in common. And we have various degrees of it, but there is a fear of our feelings. We've been taught to get over it. We've been taught positive is better than negative. we've been taught. I heard a woman who's worked with me for 5 years just slip into saying she felt anger happening, and she's not an angry person. The slip was to think of herself when she had a transient feeling, to deny
Mm.
that subliminal it's just a little bit of subconscious. We're so sophisticated intellectually. We like to think we're beyond good and bad, but we were all taught these things are good. This is the behavior we parents want. This is bad. Our minds, even if our parents weren't at this place, our minds as children are so undeveloped that that's all we can see. This behavior, this thought, this feeling, this action gets a smile, that one gets a frown. It gets, in the worst cases, it gets punishment. But many of us were threatened with the withdrawal of love. Like, I don't like that, or, a face at you. That's enough to start triggering not enoughness, imagined unworthiness, perceived guilt. So we have, I would say, all of us, a bit of a myth about feelings that we're going to become a bad person if we have certain feelings. So the paradox in my system, called conscious dissociation, is that the goal is to get to the home that I'm talking about. You don't have to know what that feels like, but it does require consciousness. If you go back to my story, you realize, if you think about with me, along with it, that I became aware of feeling okay. What if I didn't have that awareness? I could have gone straight back to the grief stages. It was right there. It was available. I could feel it. I had almost a choice, but I'd rather call it conscious, the availability of consciousness. So I'm calling this conscious dissociation. Now, we have, especially for therapists, a negative psychopathological association to the word dissociation. But all the way I'm using it is, you have a feeling, or a feeling has happened. Anger happened, pain happened, joy happened. They all just happen. But when we understand with our mature brains that feelings and thoughts are transient, they are not us. So we're disidentifying that we are these feelings. And remember, I just said we have a feeling that we're bad if we have certain feelings. This is about consciously making all feelings okay. They're just transient, and they are not us. So we can, with good conscience and responsibility, dissociate with them, but only after we know what they are. So I am going to teach very easy process of naming 8 feelings, and they come in pairs. And the beauty of them is that they're more raw and they're bigger than most of us would like to admit to. And the trick is that our feelings are on a continuum, and we usually try to make them smaller, but by making them bigger, it's easier to dissociate from them. So I'll give you an example. And here's how I would like each of us, and I do this myself. I interview myself. Is there any joy there? The first pair is joy, pain. And they're put together for a very specific reason, because as a therapist, you know that pain and joy are often paired. You can feel joyful even in the middle of your pain if
Mm,
you're present to it, or someone can tell you a very painful story and you can feel joyful at the connection.
mm,
So joy, pain, but notice when I say I'm interviewing myself, just in the process of asking myself in a kind voice, maybe in someone else's voice, you're trying to bring in a soothing presence to yourself. Is there any joy here? Is there any pain here? I know anxiety is a popular word. I'm not a fan of the word because it's not gutty enough. It doesn't, so let's say I said, well, I'm feeling really anxious. That would mean I'm feeling numb to my feelings and I'm having a body sensation. So asking, is there any pain in anxiety? Yes, a little. Okay. If you got a little, you then in the end say, I have pain, or better than I have is pain is happening here
mm,
because we're disidentifying. So the pairs are joy, pain, anger, fear. I call guilt perceived mistakes and shame imagined unworthiness. But if you want to go to guilt and shame, that's fine. And then the last two are numbness, because if you don't know what you're feeling, probably you could say you're in some continuum of numbness. And presence brings you back home. It brings you back to that home of okayness. So at the end, again, you would repeat, anger has happened. Yes, there's anger and anxiety. Fear has happened. Yes, there's fear and anxiety. Yes, there's some pain and anxiety. Oh, yeah, there's perceived guilt about that thing. Oh, yeah, imagined unworthiness. Yeah, there's some of that. And in that paradox, we're not those feelings now. They are just transient. We know that within 90 seconds, if you don't add to the feeling, and then this happened, and then what am I going to do? And then, that would be adding. If you don't add within 90 seconds, a new feeling or thought is possible. So that is working on the brain chemistry, this process of, helping you to not add on. Because what do? You're in a feeling and it feels big, or you're trying to get away from a feeling. It gives us something to do that isn't about filling up with more feelings and thoughts. It's just about helping us become more conscious.
of that. It brings a sense of objectivity to the feelings that we feel so consumed with. And I love that. All the stuff that you were talking about as you were introducing that process is really conditioning, right? This is our early childhood conditioning
Yes.
that we are all trying to overcome. And you have found this a beautiful way of creating some distance between what we're thinking and what we're feeling and how we're
Can I
experiencing
add a word there? To
peace.
overcome, we're embracing it, and that's
I
the
love that.
difference. We've
Yes,
been trying to get away from our condition and get away from our childhood. Now we're naming it. These are just transient feelings and thoughts. They're not us, so we can embrace them without feeling like we're icky or bad or not enough.
beautiful.
Yeah. So that's
Wonderful.
the paradox. We're embracing to let it go.
Super. And so would you just name some of the, I mean, we can all extrapolate what some of the benefits and outcomes would be of that process, but what do you see happening as you're working with yourself in this way?
Well, presence is everything. So let me just talk about presence. When any of us are with someone who's not present, how does it feel? Mm, I mean, we've all been to, I've been to dinners. There's people on our block um, who organize dinners for ladies on the block, with the women, and we go out. We don't know each other. So we could have open, present time getting to know each other. Most of the women are not present. So you could spend the evening and nice. I don't know anybody any better. But if I'm present with one person at a time and I look at you and I take in right now, your eyes are so warm, your head is nodding, you've got a smile on your face, even though we're talking about, intense things. I am present seeing you. Most of us long to be seen. Most of us long for connection. When there's a lot of buzz about authenticity to prevent loneliness, I say presence
Mhm.
brings us into connection. And you can be lonely in a crowded room, but if you're present, you will not be lonely. If you give the old thing, we used to hear when I was young, if you want a friend, be a friend. There's some truth to that. If you want to be seen, if you want to be heard, see and hear someone.
Yes.
And just, I feel totally connected to you. I've never met you before. I would hope to see you again, but it's not based on something I get from you later or got from you in the past. It's just now. And everything about joy and happiness say that it's only in the now. You can't be happy in the future and you can't redo the past.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's everything. I feel like it's not the only method, but it is one way to be enjoyed, to be in the now.
Absolutely. Yes, wow, timeless. The presence that we're able to bring, I believe allows others to bring theirs as well, right?
Yeah,
You show up
yeah.
present and then somebody else has this opportunity to also show up in a really present way. In what
Yes.
Yeah, in one of the somatic trainings I took, we pushed on partners, and when somebody is ungrounded, it's very easy to push them over, but when they're grounded, it's much easier for them to be present as they're being leaned on or pushed on. And so we just noticed how how we participate in this mutual connection with each other. And you're
Yeah.
really demonstrating that right now. Thank you, Rosalyn.
Yes. Thank you for this opportunity to be with everyone and with you. Yeah.
Happy, happy, happy that you're here. So I'm curious how you would suggest or encourage people to integrate this in their lives on a daily basis. How would you do that?
Interview yourself, write down the pairs. They're not that hard to understand. They're not fancy words. And the ego, most of us know what that word means, likes complicated, likes future, likes I'm not there yet. Um, but you can be there today. You can be here now. Use these pairs. You don't even need to have an outside person work with you. We're always selling, we're always marketing our services. This is an inside job. You can have freedom now and it's free. You
Mm,
can take these pairs, really, really be willing to own them. I have taught this a long time, and it actually was created by Pia Malady before the 80s. And she used it, and has been very successful with addictions and codependence. And I tweaked it, the language, and added on but I've had a lot of experience teaching this. I've never taught it this way before with conscious dissociation. I plan on using it as part of a TEDx talk. But I want to tell you what's kept people from the full benefit.
Thank you.
I taught it. And what keeps them is the looking for something else. There's the ego is always in search of something new, something shiny, something more. What if you already have the tool, any tool? You can take one of your somatic tools, but do it. Don't just listen. Don't just, think about it. Do it. So what I found was that people have certain feelings they wish to have and other feelings they've made a lifetime out of denying. And so I'll give you a concrete example. There's a woman who says, I don't feel anger. And so I have revealed to her, has she ever shut down and been unwilling to talk with a partner? Has she ever gone away? Do you think that your partner feels you in your withdrawal that you've been angry? So we have a person who wants to see anger as rage, and it's very important. Her identity has been built around, I don't do rage, and I don't have anger like this partner who yelled, this parent, excuse me, who yelled. They might even be with a partner who yells. Very, very common. And so by refusing to see the way she does anger, she isn't going to make any progress because the anger is going to come out in displacement. It's going to come out in little bitty bites. She won't get the relief because underneath that refusal to have a feeling is the belief she is the feeling. So she can't afford to be a bad person. So
Mm-hmm.
free up all the feelings. That's just one example. See if you have any refusals to some of these feelings. And in letting go the refusal, it's always a paradox. You'll get the freedom from the feeling.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. The bringing in the word refusal, I think that's really relevant to most people. We don't really think about refusing our feelings, refusing or allowing them to come through. This makes me think of emotional freedom technique. And I did read in your information that you practice EFT, emotional freedom technique, which I don't think is very common in our profession. And so please, if you would, bring in how you would use that to help us uncover some of these difficult feelings, challenges, etc.
Yeah. Um, it's almost one of your somatic techniques because it's very physical. Our nervous systems are all tied up with our thoughts and feelings. And so in the setups of the EFT, um, we can bring in almost with humor uh, our refusals. It's very helpful, I think, to work with a practitioner to go a little deeper with this. I have seen it done, and you can relax doing it yourself. But sometimes, even having someone else, let's say this was the woman that we just described, if she was in a positive, affirming relationship with a clinician, uh, and they could tease her, they could say while the body was relaxing, they could say, "Oh, and you don't have any of those," and laughter, and while she's relaxing, could be an opening. When I did EFT with a wonderful practitioner named Nancy Linneruth, and you can look her up, she does amazing work. You might even want to have her on here. She does EFT for business owners so that they can redirect and face the blocks that they have to visibility, to earning money. And she has helped entrepreneurs grow. So you might love to have her on. I highly recommend her. But when I did my work with her, what I found was at the bottom of every block was, and it was just shocked me, was my parents' ancestral issues with the Nazis.
Oh,
I mean, it was underneath every fear, every reluctance to be visible, every reluctance about, like, of course, I'd worked on this, as a psychotherapist. This was not news, but the EFT really cleared it out. And having witnesses, that's why I like working with someone with EFT to go a little bit deeper than the relaxation that's possible at the level that you do it for yourself.
yes. Yes. And so emotional freedom technique, EFT, is one of the tapping techniques that we use to move through the nervous
Mhm.
system activation through the system, through the
Mhm.
body.
And
Yeah.
to see where your blocks are, because it's really hard without consciousness to let go of what you don't know.
Almost impossible.
Yeah, sometimes life happens and we're not in charge of luckily more lets go than every little conscious effort. And it seems like they let go in packages, just like I was stuck with that one package of the Nazis and my parents. So much let go when I let it go, beyond the ones we tapped on.
Okay.
So, they're all kind of intertwined with our self-image, our identity, our blocks. They're all tied together. So, I just remember when just coming back into business, I hadn't, as a therapist in the 90s, the 2000s, 2010, you didn't have to market. You didn't have to do any of that. I had a full practice just being myself and doing the work and then coming back. There's all this marketing, best-selling book. Okay, that's great. But now you have to sell your book. You have to be, promote it unless you want it to just go into the hinterlands.
Yeah.
So uh, I remember doing EFT and Nancy said, "Oh, yeah, it's impossible for you to have a rock star virtual assistant." And I went, "Yeah, that's impossible." Just saying that out loud, I have the most rock star virtual assistant, um,
Beautiful.
beyond what I could have imagined. But just saying that outrageous thing out loud, what you think is impossible. If someone had done EFT with me when I was grieving, I would have said it's impossible to ever be happy again. Even though I know joy happens, I would have felt that, but it's not true. And I want to say about grief, we're told two things: that grief is love with nowhere to go. How about we honor our person and find a place in this world to be greater as our as a symbol of our love?
Mm.
Why is that not why is it that there is no place for love to go? There is a place. That is not true. That's a myth. And the other is that we suffer to the degree that we love the person. What? What? We
Yeah.
don't need to. Yes, that is what we've been taught, but that does not have to be the way it is. So let's just all bust that myth together, that we can love as a way to honor the person and be joyous and live for them in as many ways as we can with courage.
Wow, beautiful. That is really um, a lovely demonstration of your relationship with your daughter and so needed in this world. And I love that you're out there spearheading this process of opening to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. If people want to learn from you, I mean, you have given some very easy things for us to do. And I love telling my clients, go work on yourselves. That's where the rubber meets the road. And so people have something that they can go work on themselves with. If people want to know more about what you do and want to spend time with you in these learning environments, how would they do that?
Well, there are a couple of ways. They can pick up the book, which is called When Wisdom Arrives, From Imagined Unworthiness to Freedom. And it's a fable, and then it's a memoir, and then it's a Q&A for how to adapt the teaching from the fable to our own lives. And it's an easy read. You can read it in an afternoon. There's a chapter coming out in a book, and it's going to come out April 24th, I believe. I have to look at the title because it's so new to me. It's only one chapter, but it's called Become Inspired: Echoes of Grace and Strength, Real Life Stories of Women's Transformation and Triumph. And my chapter is Embracing Life Beyond Limitations. No, actually, mine is called Quantum Belonging. So embracing life is part of the subtext on the title. But if you want to work with me, I have a free Glimpses of Awakening class. You can sign on my website, rosalynrourke.com.
Beautiful, wonderful. Okay, I imagine that there are plenty of people who are viewing this that will want to connect with you and see what you offer. Your videos are wonderful. I loved the musing that I watched the other day of you. Your presence is really um, solid and welcoming.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, that's available if you like videos rather than classes. Those are free as well. They come every Thursday to your inbox. Yeah.
Well, so thank you so much for sharing this process of
It's
conscious
been fun.
dissociation, your personal journey with this process, the way that you have found okayness. I love that word. I'm going to start using it with people. It's achievable to find that level of okayness is really, it's not something that's so far away that you have to do all of this personal work to get there. So thank you for introducing us to that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Rosalind, I look forward to seeing you again in some way, shape, or form. And meanwhile, just many, many blessings to you.
Same to you. Bye for now.